Welcome back to Rebound with Resilience, a podcast dedicated to raise your resilience, mindset, and mental wellness. On this episode, we have a guest, a lady with a huge heart, a selfless server. She's a mother of two adorable sons, and also a well-loved and well-respected MP with none other than Ms Tin Pei Ling. Hi, Ms Tin.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
I wrote to you, I didn't expect much, but just thank you so much for taking this time off your busy schedule to be with us today.
No, it's really a pleasure. Talking to you, knowing why you are doing this, I think it's a meaningful endeavor. So hopefully I can value add to you and whoever's out there.
No, for sure. I'm so looking forward. I trouble sleeping because I was nervous.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but I hope, when I first started this small studio, you're one of the first few people I thought of inviting because of your courage and resiliency and how you really kept at it, at your mission and cause. But I think I had not enough self-image to write to you at the start. But eventually I did, and I'm thankful that you're with us here today.
Well, it's really a pleasure. Now we are here, so it's a good start. It's a good point.
Okay, so just a quick outline. We're more from a humanistic angle. We will touch on policy a little bit, but by and large, we're really focused on just personal experiences and advice. Three things we're going to talk about, three themes. The first thing is just growing up, and how your interest in politics started. And then we're going to talk about, GE 2011. I know it was like baptism of fire, so to speak. Just a little bit about that. And then, of course, life as an MP and as a parent, juggling commitments. And finally, about things we're both passionate about, education and mental health.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning. I think you were, I'm going to say you were a student. Of course, you were once a student. But how were you like as a student? Were you already so driven and passionate about service?
Well, I think when I was a student, I was more the type that a bit more FOMO, fear of missing.
Okay.
In that I like to participate in a lot of things, but to be in politics actually wasn't at all on my agenda.
Okay.
When growing up, I had different ambitions. I think many people do, like from wanting to be a teacher to a cop to being police, and to being a doctor. It really depends on what's the drama, what's the most popular drama of the day.
So interesting.
And of course, being an only child, like role play at home, when I've got nothing else to do. So those were the things that I thought I wanted to be when I was growing up. And I think as a student in school, I think I'm a bit more guai type. I do pursue academic good performance because that is just me. So actually growing up, I think I was more the typical the student who just focused on the studies. But I go out to play, and I was very close to my mom because she's a housewife and I was the only child. We spent a lot of time together. She was like my best friend. I'll tell her anything, like everything, like including
the crushes,
that too. So she knows, actually, she knows for most part of it.
Sure.
Then until, of course, I enter university. And so actually throughout the whole time, I would say that my ambitions were pretty much typical until after A-levels. Okay. And I thought to myself, I didn't really think that I would want to be, cooped up in a lab or do what I thought was boring stuff back then. And most of my classmates went into engineering, science, those were the typical subjects that they chose, and I was thinking to myself, maybe not. And it was also about that time when I had a better appreciation of mental health issues, and I wanted to do something that I felt strongly about, and I wanted to do something to help others as well as combat stigma. So that's why from A-levels, I decided to go into FASS, NUS to do psychology. And at that point in time, actually, I really thought that I wanted to pursue a career as a psychologist.
Wow.
Well,
okay. I
Yeah, so I probably would have chosen psychiatry, that means going
Okay.
to medicine, but I didn't know that actually I could have chosen without biology in JC.
Sure.
I mean, now no point looking back. But so, yeah, so from year one NUS, from the point of entry into NUS until year three, actually I was, just single-mindedly wanted to get into clinical psych. And I
Okay.
even sought out my own internship just to expose myself and
Right.
and see how best I can pursue this path. But in year three, my father had a heart episode, so it was really quite challenging.
Sure.
As the only child, nobody could help me except for my mum, and she has a weak heart.
Okay.
So I had to take a semester off.
Can I
Yeah.
go back a little bit? Because I
Sure.
know that you
Yeah.
had your dad runs a coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
And you had to take a leave of absence to help him with his. Was it during that period?
Yes, it
Ah,
was.
okay.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So
So it's this
yeah,
period
match.
now.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and I mean, in a way, it's similar to like a hawker, right? So
Okay.
you wake up really early in the morning, and then you work like for more than half the day. Then my mom would come and take over before I
Okay.
come back and close the shop and all. So it was really tough. So I had to take leave of absence. I was really reluctant because that means I will have to graduate later than my peers, and it was a tough thing.
Okay.
But it was not the toughest thing, but it was a bit tough.
Sure.
Then, but it was also about that time that I had to reassess what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Because in Singapore back then, there wasn't a clinical course in psychology in the university. So if you want to pursue that, if you want to practice, you want to pursue that, you have to go overseas to study.
Yep.
And it
Okay.
was like costly, and there's no guarantee that you can get in, right? And then given my dad's situation, our family situation, I thought that wasn't a very practical thing to do. So it took me quite some time to persuade myself out of it. And I had to think to myself, actually, what are the things that I look for in a job?
Okay.
As a career and my passion. So
Right.
then I devolved the two. Passion, I can still pursue it as a volunteer. I do things in the community. But in a career, I thought to myself, I think something that's more dynamic, that I can face people. I think I can deal with that. So that really helped clarify, what I wanted to do. And even at that point, politics was still not really.
Yeah, I was wondering like, where does it come in? Because like seems like pretty sudden there. Yeah, but I would love to hear from you how that came in eventually.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I'm
Yeah.
the kind who likes to participate in a lot of things because I don't know why, I just like
FOMO lah.
yeah, FOMO lah, maybe lah. Then
Okay.
in NUS actually, okay, before my father had that heart episode, actually he was already being involved in the community at Ghim Moh side, Ghim Moh Road, so Ulu Pandan side, and because he's Chinese speaking, he didn't graduate from primary school, so I usually would be the interpreter for him. And so that was like my initial exposure.
Okay.
And then finally in year two, I got into grassroots. I started with Meet the People session
Okay.
to help. And I was very intrigued and, by the different issues that different people face. And these are very, different from what my peers are experiencing. It really opened my eyes. It helped me understand what are the things or challenges that the normal Singaporeans face. And I really felt that it was something meaningful.
Okay.
And of course, there were some other youth who were about my age there at the branch, so it made that experience a lot more pleasant, very nice. And so I started from there. So I started volunteering. Then I continued even after graduation. And then one day I was invited to go drink tea, what we call her cha, right? Yeah. Then
Ask about, pardon to
Yeah.
interrupt you, Ms. Tin. I just want to
Yes.
ask about when you were volunteering for the MP
Yeah.
sessions, right? Like what was it about it, listening to those stories that, like, did it really like resonate with you that, okay, wow, there are people that needs to be helped? That do you feel that sense of helplessness sometimes? What was the
Yeah.
emotions that came through you?
Yeah, so back then when I started, I was still a student,
Okay.
and an NUS student, and so I would say that growing up, I realized that a lot of things my parents probably shielded from us lah, as best as we could. But when you're at MPS, you meet people from all walks of life. I remember I share a few typical stories, but I mean these are some of the ones that really shape you. So,
Okay.
for example, there was this mother, young mother. She had a few kids. She came to MPS crying, and her
Okay.
kids were crying
Okay.
because they were hungry. And the what happened is that the husband was a drug addict, so he's in and out.
Sure.
And so he has been quite absent from the family. And the mother, because of the various kids, she couldn't go to work. Back then, I think the concept of childcare wasn't as strong as it is today, actually.
Okay.
And that was in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And so she couldn't work. There was not enough to feed the kids. Obviously, they were hungry, and that's why they were crying. And at that point in time, she only had enough cash to take a bus home with them. So then what do we do? So me and a few volunteers, I remember back then, we quickly split the work. Some will start writing the appeal letters or the application form to apply for the various social welfare, the financial assistance for them. And then another group took the kids and her quickly to the McDonald's, Block 19, I remember, to have a meal, quick meal, just fill the stomachs first. Because at that time, I think many shops were closed already, so bo pian. So I have to just quickly bring to McDonald's, just fill the tummies first. And then I remember, talking to, sharing this with Dr. Vivian, who was the MP at Ulupana. He immediately, rendered assistance, like immediate assistance. And he said something which I still remember. It's like, we need to help this family to get back on their feet. And that really, I think, to me, was
Striking for you.
It was a striking moment.
Okay.
And it demonstrated how, some families, every family has their own challenges and issues to go through. Sometimes, even if they try very hard, it could be still very difficult. But for us in the community, if all of us come together and help in different ways, whether it's in terms of the immediate needs and then eventually help them to be strong and resilient again, I think that would be very meaningful. And actually, just fast forward a little bit.
Sure.
So one of the volunteers managed to find a job for the husband. And of course, there were follow-ups with the family. I think they were in a better off position.
It's great. You saw the real impact.
I did.
Made,
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And to me, it was that everyone served wanting to make a difference, wanting to help, and that, I think, is a very important thing. Just extrapolating it further, right? Politics is about people's life. It's about improving people's life. It's about how can we help people to be better, to grow stronger, to still have a bright future ahead for generations to come. These may sound very cheesy, but it is true.
It is.
When it comes to us, in the end, every day what we are looking for is that our families are safe, they are healthy, they are taken care of, and that when it comes to our aspirations, that there are opportunities for us that we can, fight for. And so I think, to me, that's important. And knowing that, the people in the community, the volunteers, the leaders, actually share that same thought, same view, I think is important. There are things that sometimes maybe we don't agree. There may be some decisions that, it was a tough decision, perhaps there were trade-offs, but if knowing that they made the decision for the right reason, I think makes a difference. And so, through MPS, I see so many different people crying, and even sometimes, at that point in time, you may not be able to immediately solve that problem, but if you were able to even give that
Glimmer of
brief,
hope.
A glimmer of hope,
I get
that
you.
brief comfort, that brief solace, I think it also,
powerful,
it's good enough at that point in time, right? And then you solve the other things later. But so therefore, to me, it was good.
Sure. So it shaped you, and then eventually you somehow you shuttled into.
So
let's
that
talk
was.
about that.
I digress.
That's okay. That's okay. It's interesting to hear your story. It's very powerful and very striking as well. What goes on behind the scenes. Now, of course, you do it full time, which we'll go into eventually. But first, when you first started out, like you said, how did the process like? Was you just say, okay, Ms Tin, now you should going to run for?
Well, I mean, there's a
Of course,
there's a
there's a
certain
process,
process
yeah.
lah, but long
yeah.
story short is
Sure.
that I was asked if I would like to serve.
Okay.
And I thought to myself that this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity to step forth and do something meaningful. As a volunteer, of course, I could have continued to do what I do and to play a supportive role. And it makes a difference too. It really does.
Sure.
But if I wanted to do more, then this is perhaps a great chance to do it. Because as a MP, you can influence. You
Sure.
can bring that voice into Parliament.
Okay.
You even outside of Parliament, you could speak with
Sure.
agencies. You could speak with different organizations and groups to try to rally them
Sure.
to be aligned to your vision. So even if, let's say now in Macpherson, I have certain vision of how Macpherson can be. And I can work with different stakeholders, community partners, with the agencies to make it happen. I can master the resources. That means ask for people to please support. There's a group of elderly or there's a group of children from low-income backgrounds, various things, to try to make that happen. And I think it's quite different from, let's say, a volunteer. And of course, the biggest difference is to push for, a champion for certain causes
Yeah.
in Parliament. And to me, I think that's something that is, 无可替代. It's really very precious. Yeah.
Took me a while. My Chinese is not the best, but
That means
I
cannot
got
be
you.
replaced,
Yeah,
yeah.
cannot replace.
Yeah.
Okay. Ita is judging me behind the camera, but so that was the upside of it, right? You saw the upside of it, but
Yes.
back then you were still ridiculously young. I mean, in the grand scheme, relatively, you're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
really young. Do you see the potential drawbacks? What your parents think about it? Like, it's a big thing to actually go and run
Yeah.
for Parliament. Like, were there any considerations before you entered?
Well, when I was the year that I was fielded in 2011, I was 27. I
yeah.
think turning 28.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. So I'm a December
Young.
baby lah.
That's my
so
age now, and I'm doing a podcast. You're running for Parliament.
不要这样讲，我觉得我
Okay,
们的
okay.
年龄隔了很久。
Oh, sorry.
I feel very old now.
I was in JC one back then. I remember.
Okay,
we
thank
discussed
you.
it in GP.
I was a case study.
No, the case.
Oh my.
Not really case study, but we can discuss it later. We can talk about it.
We'll talk about it later. So I just started out not too long in my job, in my career, and so there were a few things that ran through my mind. I was thinking like, hey, actually for many rounds of GE, even the youngest candidate never went under 30. So whether I, at 20 something, would people be able to accept me? So of course there was some of that in my mind lah. But
Okay.
I was telling myself that I'm here to serve.
Sure.
So I'll do my best regardless. And if for where I am inadequate, I'll see how I can find people to help lah, right?
Okay.
So there was a bit of that in my mind, but also because I started out I was still early in my career. That was in my mind like, should I maybe develop my career a little bit more first, or I didn't have a real conclusion back then. It was
Sure.
just at the back of my mind, and I asked my family, because clearly this is, having been a volunteer, I know how much commitment is
Sure.
needed. So I asked my family whether they would be supportive, and I'm thankful that they are. I think for my parents, both of them did not graduate from primary school.
Oh.
They always tell me that,
Okay.
and so from their perspective, I think I have exceeded what they probably
Oh,
thought.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right.
That's
So
an understatement.
I mean,
Okay.
because in that sense, I was the first to graduate from a university from our family. So I think to them I know that they have my back lah. I know they love me and
Okay.
they just want to be supportive. So I know they are supportive, and
Sure.
yeah. So after that, I thought to myself, it's like really what I mentioned, and it's a once in a lifetime chance to make a difference, to
Okay.
really make an impact. why not just try?
Okay. So that was that spark, that emotion that ultimately,
Yeah.
if you could pinpoint it to one reason why, it was because it's a one in a lifetime chance to make a difference.
Yeah, because I mean, it's in a way that's a trigger because my experiences as a grassroots, as a community volunteer before that, already help me understand what this is all about, and that it is really making a positive difference. Yeah.
Got it. So now we transition into GE 2011. I know you spoke about it slightly with Mothership. I thought I could explore it a little bit. I think it's no surprise that you were faced with tremendous public pressure during that time. Probably not something you expected, but back then social media was just coming up. And as far as I can remember, you were the first person I can remember to really face the online mob, so to speak. Like it was just nasty things, sometimes people are actually saying. And you know how behind anonymity there can be so many things people are saying, right? How did that affect, how did that weigh on your mind and your mental health at that time?
Wow, it was overwhelming. And I used to describe it as the darkest period of my life. And it was really like, I don't know how to even describe it. It's like so overwhelming. It's like tsunami. It's like you can't even go up to the surface of the water to take a breath, kind of thing. It's like everything that I say or do or post, no matter how I thought it was how objective I thought it was, it will attract thousands of comments, and most of it would be, of course, nasty lah.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, it was highly pressurizing. A few things. One, of course, I wondered, why is this happening? I mean, what exactly did I do wrong? I don't think I did anything to harm anyone. Why am I being hit like that? And many of the comments were quite personal. And they also dug up photos from my friends' account, their blogs and all these, from my younger days, from when we had fun. And I thought I was a normal person, but I became like a meme. And of course there was that puzzle, that puzzle that I have in my, why? And then there was, and so I kept wondering why. So there was that. And then I remember, when I was thinking to myself, am I a liability? That the party decided to feel me. Obviously I want to do my best, but am I becoming a liability? And so I actually had conversations with some of the leaders, and I'm really thankful that they gave me their fullest support, and that they stood by me. I mean, I would say that I didn't do anything wrong. So, and that to me was important. Of course, my family played was a huge anchor in my life. Okay, I'm so sorry. This is so embarrassing, but
it's okay. I think the vulnerability is what connects people.
I mean, it's 10 years past. Yeah. I should be stronger, but anyway. And my parents, when they went out, obviously nobody knew who they were. So they could, for example, they were at a food court and they could hear people talking about their daughter, right? But they couldn't say anything. And then I remembered, sorry.
It's okay.
So I remembered that even when I was going out, there were people who recognized me, and they were, talking about me, knowing that I was there. And so that was a bit tough. So for a long time, I didn't dare to go out, except to when I needed to go to the constituency and do my work. And every day it would be just crying at home at night when there's no one. And then the next day, it's like, I must just go out and just do what's important. Thankfully, every day when I meet residents, when I hear and learn about the challenges that face, it helps me to put things into perspective, that there are bigger issues out there. People have bread and butter challenges to face, to solve, and here am I, I'm just feeling emotionally hurt,
But it was still a big thing. Like every single thing you did, they were breathing meaning into it. Everything you said, everything you wear, it was just Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yes, my hair, my color, everything lah. So yeah, but really, I mean, on hindsight, it's easy for me to say. But back then it was really tough. But really, when you look at people's, bread and butter issues, losing a house, maybe need to find a shelter, don't have enough to eat, etc., etc. It's like, okay, they need my help. I should stop being, feel pitiful about myself. I really need to go out there and do something. And thankfully, with my family, my husband, for example, every day he will find something encouraging to say to me, a story maybe. And actually, at that time I cannot process lah, but it helps us. So actually, over time, actually, that strength built up.
Yeah.
And I obviously I stopped crying at home at night. I just continue to go out there and do my work, continue to get to know people, to hear them, and soon enough, I had that confidence to go out, just go out, right? And that was an important step. And actually, if I could, for whoever who may be struggling.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, pardon me to cut you off. I just want to add something.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I am, first of all, thank you again for coming on this show and willing to being vulnerable. I think that's one thing that really connects you to the ground as well. You really understand people's issues and you have a heart for them, and your courage and resilience despite all those things to stand up again and go forward because of who you care for. I think that really was why I wanted to ask you on the show. That's I have massive respect. And I want to say also for people, on behalf of the people who know your story and who have seen you serve them, I just want to say that they are definitely thankful for your service as well.
Thank you, Kevin. And I am thankful for the people who supported me, and especially my residents, because at the time when it was so difficult for me personally, and when there were a lot of doubt, my team did not forsake me. My residents decided to give me that chance. They could have just thrown me out, right? But they did not, and you gave me a chance. So, and for that I'm grateful. And therefore, I was telling myself that I cannot let everyone down. I had to get back up. And actually, to anyone who's out there struggling, if you are watching this, what I want to share is that we all have our own battles to fight. Yours may be different from mine, but that does not make it any easier. There are times when you feel helpless, like it's hopeless, like no matter what you do, it just doesn't seem right. Don't give up, and don't beat yourself down to the dust for that. If you need to vent, if you need to let it out, if you need to cry, just go ahead. But you have to find that inner strength to continue. It's easier said than done, but it can be done. And in the end, I love this pop song by Kelly Clarkson. What doesn't kill you will make you stronger. And if there's another pop song I can offer, let's shake it off. I saw you can. There's another one called Platinum. And really, it's, to me, these are, it's real and it's true. And I think, we all have that strength to be able to stand up again. Maybe sometimes it takes a little bit longer time for some people, but it's okay. We just need to believe that we can stand up again, and we will. And that, I think, is very, very important. There will always be time and chance for us to be successful again, to be on the right track again. So just don't give up. Yeah.
Thank you for that message, Ms. Tin. I was getting emotional listening to you, but I have to stay calm for this too, because there's still some things I want to ask you about as well. But thank you I think that wraps up this segment on this podcast about your journey and how you kind of overcome that. So it's really about just knowing you have a bigger cause to serve, and of course the social support from the people that you were serving, as well as from your husband, and of course that mindset of resilience lah. Was there, I guess, one more thing on this segment before I go to the next one, right? Was there any other factors that help you to press on? Like, if you were to kind of pinpoint them, the factors help you to press on, what would it be in a brief way?
Well, I mean, in addition to the support that I've gotten from my family, my team, my residents, honestly, I also think that sometimes it's important to have failures in life.
Okay.
Because every time when you fall, you it's like if you have a little cut, you grow a scab around it, the skin is fortified. And in the same way, sometimes little failures along the way helps to make you stronger. And it is important to be able to experience that. I know it's very difficult. It's easy to say. It's very difficult at that moment. And why would anyone wish you fail, right? Nobody would do that. And as parents, obviously, it's even harder to think of that. But, sometimes it's these setbacks. It is really these setbacks that really, every time you overcome it, it makes you stronger. And if it's ideally it should be small little setbacks that with every one that you go through, it makes you stronger. So you don't want that. You don't want your first setback to be such a tsunami that you cannot deal with it, right? So, and so it is. And basically, the point is, it's okay to fail sometimes. It's okay to fall down sometimes. It hurts. It hurts like hell sometimes. But it's okay. And whether it's in school, whether it's BGR, whether it's family, sometimes it's okay. It's really part of growing up. And it makes you be a stronger and better person. You learn from it. And if I may add, I think my own journey, in that sense, falling down and then getting up again, is not just unique to me. My colleagues, many Singaporeans out there would have your own stories to tell. And I think everyone is doing our utmost to come back, to be stronger, to do the right thing. And so I just wanted to do a shout out, don't give up. 加油.
Thanks. Yeah, I think rounding up this segment, I always share resilience is something that we are really about. It's a kind of my obsession. And you look at the definition of resilience, right? It's actually the ability to adapt or bounce back stronger from failure or setbacks. Which means that in order to develop, I always ask students or even people that I talk to, they ask me how to develop resilience. And I ask them, what's the secret ingredient to resilience? What's the secret ingredient to resilience? And you realize that across all stories, right, there's one commonality, and that is failure and setback. It's only through that raw material of failure that they develop the capacity to be resilient. So it's really about embracing it and not protecting them for it, but preparing them for that. Not preventing them from failure, but preparing them for that. And I think it's also important that you mentioned that facilitated failure is important. Like having someone to support you to go through it is also important, because sometimes I see that people face failures and then they just resign to the fate because they don't have anyone to support them, and it goes down the other way. That's also very sad to see.
Indeed.
Some people take their lives because of that. So it's important to also have support while going through those failures. I guess later on we're going to talk about mental health, but we have to transition quickly into the next segment, which is on life as an MP and of course as a parent, juggling multiple commitments. I'm not sure how you do it, but I'm going to ask about it now. In your typical week, what do you do as an MP?
Okay. So the typical week now and before COVID is a bit different. Well, I think typically, just broadly speaking, Mondays would be my weekly Meet the People session.
Okay.
So residents who need help will come and we will listen to them, help them with appeals, etc., etc. So that takes up the entire evening all the way to the wee hours.
Okay.
Then the rest of the week, it depends. Of course, there will be block visits, but I'm very low so I can keep talking. So my speed is slow. Because I don't like to rush. I can say, hi, you have any problem? Don't have? Okay, I walk away. But I try to, talk a little bit more. So my speed is naturally slow. So every week we'll do block visits. And in between there would be, of course, community events. Now it's more online type. Last time it used to be a lot more and would be physical.
Sure.
And and in between there would be, emails to clear. Sometimes trying to get messages out through social media because it's one way to get, to convey your message out there. And emails, of course, would be usually residents with issues or needing help. So that's broadly. Then sometimes we have parliament. So every month we have parliament, and it's increasingly taking up many more days. So that means we have to adjust. And I actually have another role with Business China, which is a non-profit. It was started in 2007. Had a vision, and so this is really to cultivate bilingual, bicultural Singaporean talents. So then these are the work part, and then there's of course my family. My parents, thankfully, I'm the only child, so they can come to my house instead. Then my two kids, I try to spend some time with them. Whether it's to just fetch them from school or nighttime. Thankfully my older one is a night owl. Okay, I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or bad thing, but
So
at least
he's young though.
he's five-ish. But because he sleeps late, so I get to see him at night. So that's nice. So he's my boyfriend. he says. Then and I've got two fur kids. Yeah.
Oh yes.
But I hardly have much time for them now.
Boki and
Shogun. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned you want to start an animal shelter in the future. I thought that was nice.
I did. At one point, So I was really quite because of Shogun mainly. Yeah. So maybe in the future. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you are very well loved and well connected on the ground. You mentioned that you even spend time speaking to people and knowing their stories. Is there any particular interaction or any specific one that you remember?
There are many people.
Right?
So it's kind of tough to pinpoint one. But there are some, very cute residents, of course, especially the seniors. They're very cute. Like, there's one auntie I always share, right? She will always count the number of times that we meet. Then I think after a while, she also almost losing count already.
Okay. Over 100, right? You said?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
Every time I see her, 几次了. That's quite cute. And then I remember there's this auntie. I can't quite speak Tamil, but somehow we managed to sign to each other. Okay. And then, but she's so warm and nice. Whenever we meet, she will just pull over and just hug, right? So now a bit tough because of COVID, but she's so nice. And she will sometimes make muruku. Back when she was a bit more, active, more fit lah. So now she's a bit older. Yeah. Then, so that there are these, and then there are also families whom I literally watch them grow up. Yeah.
I must imagine like the relationships that you build will be very meaningful because you like you said, you literally from 2011 now it's 10 years.
Yeah.
And then someone 10 years old would be like, if I was looking at 17, I'll be 27 now. So, wow, it's quite amazing to journey with them. And you, of course, that's reflected in your vote count as well as what.
I'm very fortunate. I must say I'm very fortunate. I have a very supportive team and residents who I must thank for. I don't do this alone. I can't do this alone. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that you also give credit away. That means.
But it's true, But it's true.
It's true. Yeah. Okay, but I want to ask, right? Because this is something that maybe people don't see this side. Like you work so hard, right? Do you also experience times where you might face a bit of burnout, or caregivers burnout? You just wake up and feel like, wow, I don't feel like doing it.
I won't describe it as a burnout.
Okay.
I'm really thankful that I've got a wonderful team. But sometimes it can be a bit tough. Sometimes when you face really strange and tough requests or complaints, and some complaints are quite complex in that there's an agenda. Sometimes rare times, but sometimes. And so then that can, make the experience a little bit less pleasant.
Sure.
But I think for the most part of the rest of the work that we do, I still think it's worthwhile and very meaningful. There are people who need help, and when you help them and they regain their hope, right? It's so happy, and you feel happy too. You feel a sense of achievement, fulfillment, very fulfilling. And then, of course, when you see how within McPherson, or at least how I see McPherson, how I can shape it to the way that I would like, or closer to what I like, to see, hope to achieve, make it more vibrant, for example. It gives that oomph, that boost, to just, okay, let's do this. Yeah, so I'm more concerned about whether my volunteers will be burned out, because they're all working very hard to serve, and sometimes people don't really realize that. And so I think it's nice to to let everyone know actually volunteers also do play a big role in all this. Yeah.
Okay. Do you take time for like self-care, or do you like schedule time? This previous podcast we were talking about scheduling breaks.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you have time to schedule breaks for yourself.
Have breaks, but I won't say scheduled.
Okay.
I must say, like during COVID, especially circuit breaker. Okay, no, actually not true, I should say. The circuit breaker time, for example, I mean, because at home I see more of my families, but it's a different form of a busyness, right? So emails were a lot more because a lot of people were hit, so they needed help. Then we try to go online and stuff. But actually that means less boundaries. Yeah, but nonetheless, I think despite the schedule, once in a while, I can still find a bit of a time to just take a small break. And usually I'll spend it with my kids, because they're growing up. And, sometimes you just wonder as a parent, are you spending enough time? And you don't know whether, if you're not spending enough time now, would that mean that next time they may go haywire or something? So, all these funny thoughts in the mind, right? So that's that. So really, like my alone time, actually not say a lot, but sometimes when I do have, I really enjoy it. Like last weekend, I managed to walk down Orchard Road on my own.
Oh.
I was like, okay. It was a half an hour walk, just for the.
Did you get recognized? Nobody bothered you.
I don't think so. I mean, even if people did, they probably So anyway, but it was a nice short alone time, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's a good segue also into the next question about parenting and your kids. I know they are 5 turning 6 and 2 turning 3,
Yes.
right? Ki Hao and Kishan.
Yes.
Talk to me about how you juggle that. Is there, especially for, I think a lot of, I guess some working moms might be listening to this podcast as well, and they are inspired by your example. Like, what are some things that you do? Juggle?
Well, I hope my sharing helps, but I think there are the mothers who have it, tougher. So at first it was a lot tougher. Like my younger one, I think he's most 吃亏 one. Because the first one, I had more time with him, especially before he went to school.
Sure.
We spent a lot more time. But even back then, actually, because of community work, he's still closer to daddy. And so I remember he won't call me mommy until like 2 years old. Then I hold the 年糕, Chinese New Year, the 年糕 sweet stuff. Then I call mommy, bribe, then he will call mommy. Right? Then after that he call mommy. So but he got more time from me. Whereas for the second, my younger son Kishan, because there's of course my older one whom I'm actually sensitive towards. I didn't want him to feel like, oh, now there's a titi and then he's left out. But I also still had my MP work and all, right? So actually my younger one, I had less time with him. And so for some time he is actually no, now he's still closer to daddy, but our relationship has gone better. Okay. Yeah. So and I guess in the end it really comes down to time. I don't think they care about what kind of, quality of life or things, around them. But I think they just want time. Like my younger one, you see us, it's either daddy, daddy, or mommy, mommy. And then, even if it's just holding them and just walking around like doing nothing, they are also happy. So I try to spend that time with them, whether it's to take a walk or just to read. It's really tough to read to my younger one, but I try to read, or like my older one, try to help him with spelling. Oh my God, he has his first spelling test this week. So, I would try that. But sometimes it's really tough. So thankfully, my husband can still spend a bit of time, and the grandparents law.
Okay. You integrate it as well. I saw in some of your stories you have Zoom meetings with them sometimes after your MP sessions. I saw recently you posted.
Oh, that one, the WhatsApp. So apparently he hasn't slept. Okay. And then I was like, okay, so do a face call, the FaceTime type of call, right? So just to say hi, then I said, what are you doing? Then he also say hi to my volunteers. Yeah, lor, then.
I think when they grow up, when they understand a little bit more, they'll be really proud and to have a mom like you.
I don't know, but I mean,
really, when they understand a little bit more about the work that you do and of course the struggles you go through and how you kind of stayed strong, I think they'll be, they're blessed. They're blessed.
I just hope that they will grow up right. Like they will grow up to be of strong values. They will be responsible. They will be contributing. That they will be kind, and also to be resilient, like here. But and really, because I don't know what challenges what setbacks they will face. I'm not sure whether I will always be there. What if tomorrow I'm gone? And then how? So like my older one, he sometimes bottles up, and that worries me. So it's like, can you tell mommy? He just doesn't say, and that worries the hell out of me, to be honest. And so I'm wondering, like, sometimes even to myself, how can I build that resilience? How can I help you? And I sometimes think to myself, now I can do a lot of things to maybe support you, to hold you when you fall, or to even prevent you from falling, right? Sometimes, but it's really preparing, like you say. And sometimes I just thought to myself, maybe I really should let you just face it. Yeah, if you fail a test, or if your friends are not playing with you, like they just help you get that experience.
It's easy for me to say because I don't have kids yet, lah. But I know when I have it, it's different, lah. You see them, it's like own flesh and blood. It's like very painful.
Yeah.
When you see them.
When you are the one kena, it's painful, but it's still like, you know where you are, whether you can hold it or not. But when you see your loved one, the feeling is quite different.
Yeah, it's true. But I guess also when I give talks to parents, I do share with them that you have to let go at certain times because they have to develop the independence of mind and resilience. And if you are always on their back, right, sometimes it's difficult for them to develop the independence. So I appreciate you sharing about that as well, and being so authentic with your experiences. I want to also compliment you a little bit because I think it's not easy then again, I'm not a mom. So I don't know. But I'm very close to my mom. I love her to death. She helped me through my depression as well. She raised me, and she was working while I was a baby. And I'll cry at night, and she say, hey, Kevin, you always cry at night. Have to make sure you then go to work the next day. It's very tiring. So I know that all these challenges, but you have shown that you don't need to choose between a career or raising a family. Of course, if people want to choose either, that's fine. But you have shown that setting a role model, an example that, hey, if you have aspirations as a lady, as a woman, you can do that and also raise a family. And I think that's something that you're also quite outspoken about, something that you've shared in Parliament. And I just want to ask you a little bit about this before we go into the part of education and mental health. You shared that one of your proudest moments in Parliament is the private member motion called the Aspirations of Women. Yeah. Could you share a bit more about that?
Sure. That is a collective effort, but being able to move it to me was very important, which I really am thankful for. And I'm also thankful that everyone was on the same page. So it started off with a series of effort by the Women's Wing, the PAP Women's
Okay.
Wing. Before that, there were position papers, there were a lot of engagement. And then, of course, as a woman going through various experiences, it just makes that even more personal, that there's that, oomph there. And that was titled The Aspirations of Women. How can we help women to put it in, the simple term is have it all. But of course, in real life, we know there are trade-offs. But how can we better support women? Whether it's a young woman trying to make the mark and also trying to start a family, or someone who has already started a family trying to get back to work, or women of any kind of background trying to break that ceiling. How can we help them better? How can we create the capacity for them so that they can juggle more roles? How can we build their capability so that they can scale higher? And of course, how can we remove those obstacles so that they can really move even higher? And how can we empower them so that they are prepared for the future? And this thing is also something that I'm very interested in and passionate about in recent times, even more so in recent times. That's women in tech, or just tech and innovation, but broadly it's about future readiness. Because as it is, we are still trying to close the gender gap. I think Singapore has made a lot of progress on this, but I think we can still do better. Women representation in the tech type of jobs, tech and innovation type of jobs, I think there's still a difference between male and females. And women representation within the tech and innovation type of courses in Singapore, I think is only 30-something%. Whereas tertiary education, female representation is more than half. So what can we do to help boost this? And why is this important? Because as we go into the future economy where some industries are going into sunset, some are emerging and rising, that means that career opportunities, career progression, as well as wage growth will be higher in these emerging industries and sectors. So we must help women to get into these areas so that they have a better chance of making a mark, being successful and closing the gap.
Okay.
And so this is something that I think we need to work harder in.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's not the focus of this podcast, but I wanted to give you some time to talk about it because you are a role model for a lot of young women with aspirations. And I guess that leads to my last question on this, right? What advice would you have for females who have big aspirations, but they might be facing doubt or some cultural systemic barriers?
So I think first of all, I think Singapore, thankfully, we are actually much better than others. But I think there are two things that will be important. First is self-belief, confidence. You must not let people's words take you down. You must have that very good sense of self, that center of gravity. It's not easy, but you have to keep trying that. Second, which is also very important, it has to go hand in hand, is to make sure you have the real skills and the real substance. Because that is something that nobody can take away from you. It's always yours. And when you have real skills and substance, that is such a strong value proposition that, even if someone wants to be, gender biased, they cannot overlook that because you have real things, you have real value to deliver. They cannot do without you in that sense. Then I think that's really powerful. So I think both needs to go hand in hand. And I know that our Singaporean women, with the education that you have, you have what it takes. So just keep honing at it. Just keep going at it. There are causes, there's government support. Make the full use of it. And once you keep honing and sharpening your skills, coupled with that sense of self-confidence, I think that's a very potent combination. Yeah.
Well, I love that answer. I think it really impact a lot of people watching. Okay, great. So with that, we come to the final segment, which is on education and mental health. Education is something that I'm passionate about. My parents also spent their whole life in education. Before we talk about improvements, I just want to acknowledge that it's important to acknowledge what we have, and we have a world-class education system, affordability, syllabus, alternative paths as well. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, but there's also, of course, concern that the competitive nature, the pressure can lead to issues with mental health among youth. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think obviously from the time when I was in school to what the system is like now, Actually, much has changed. And with any change to the system, because in education, you don't see the immediate effect of it. It has to take years. And that is a challenge. You cannot 马上调, you cannot immediately go and adjust it type. So there's that challenge. So every time when you have to make a change, you have to think through many times more. And then after you implement it, you have to let it sink in. So I think that's one. But I think personally, I appreciate the different pathways. And why I say this is because apart from everyone has a different strength in different areas, but people also learn very differently. There are those who thrive under pressure. The greater the pressure, the faster they think, the better they are, because they are the kinds who need deadlines. If you don't give deadline, I'll procrastinate. Therefore, I'll be just mediocre. But if you give me deadline, I immediately do something and then I'll just do it. Right? So there are some of them who are like that. But then there are others who may need a gentler approach, a more nurturing approach, and let them explore and discover. And then they assimilate, they internalize, they will be more creative and whatnot. So there are that, and we need to cater to these different learners. So this personalization type of approach, at the system level, with so many people, I can imagine there will be some challenges. If it's just a small class, maybe you can do it. But at the whole national level, it's tough. So, but I see that happening as well, and I also see that even the examination system, the way someone is being assessed and then in a way directed to the stream, directed, right, has also changed. Like I think, is it this year? PSLE is changing, right? So honestly, I don't know how it would be like, because I went through the old system. But I think it sounds encouraging. And then I think the next thing that I feel maybe we could do more is really the softer aspects. The things that you cannot put into a textbook but makes a difference. For example, if I just talk a little bit further, when it comes to a job, and I ever raised this example before, you have candidate A, candidate B. Let's say they are all things held equal, everything held equal, background, abilities, etc., all held equal. There's one single opportunity for promotion between someone who is always willing to collaborate, has a winning personality. Just summarizing this, right? Then the other one who is a bit more, more particular and all. So from the boss perspective, who might be the one with the slight edge, right? So quite clear, right? So the one who's willing to collaborate, I think will and have that street smart, right, will be better. Yeah. So this is a very hypothetical situation. In real life, not like that. But so this softer side of things makes a difference. And even in terms of empathy, talking to people in teams, you need that, right? Yeah. So and sometimes you need to have opportunities for people to hone that. Some people natural, maybe more instinctive, but others they need to learn a bit more. So how can we help them with that? I think school. First family, then school. I think these are useful environment. But then there are also other things. For example, legal literacy, some of these things, digital literacy. This digital literacy, I think, is being addressed. But other things such as legal literacy, I think, and financial literacy, I think are useful. Very useful life skills. I've seen in the community where residents who have been taken advantage of, from those who are not so educated to those who are actually educated, when they just sign on things without even looking through terms and condition. Right. And so these are things that it must be intuitive. You must read before you sign, right? So and so these are things that I think are useful. And finally, as I mentioned before, just now, failures in school. School actually is a very safe environment where it's where you build resilience, because there are opportunities in a safe environment for you to fail, like a test. Every year you have a few more tests. It's painful, it's demoralizing to fail a test. As parents, you don't even know how to feel about it. It's like, should I have helped you or should I have just let you fail it. It's very tough, but it helps. Or like, sometimes that socializing, my friend unfriend me, like last time we said unfriend you is like that, right? Like now, I don't know how it's like, but some of these things actually builds that. But we must guard against bullying, of course. We must guard against some of these very harmful things that we may observe. But generally, I think school is a very safe environment where we should help students to encounter failures
more facilitated.
Facilitated failures and then learn from it.
Yeah. I honestly think I resonate with you there, because I honestly think that more can be done in that aspect of failure. And my whole life is not my whole life, I mean my 20s at least. I've been every other day going. In fact, after this, I'm going to a school.
Oh.
Yeah, to talk to youth that might be struggling with self-esteem issues. So actually, I do agree with you that yes, they fail. It's important to fail, but more can be done to support them through that failure, prepare them for it.
Yeah. So to be fair, the MOE, the schools, they are doing, and in fact, they have done more, a lot more. But it's really how can we personalize this, and it's challenging.
I do fully understand that it is challenging with so many students and all their individual needs, and there's one teacher. I know it's difficult. I think CCE program recently, they also included mental wellness and mental health as part of a strong team. I think that's one very good thing moving forward. They made it compulsory. I feel it's really important.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your... I feel like you, in a way, really answered this question, but maybe in a succinct manner, right? What is your hopes for the education system or our culture towards education as a whole?
I would really like to see lifelong learning. And I know we've been talking about this, but I really believe in it, especially now that we see how the world gets disrupted again and again at a faster speed, it's accelerating. And a lot of things that we used to know are no longer. Like, for example, programming language, right? It has changed so many times. Now it's Python, tomorrow I don't know. But and just that, using that example alone, it means that we have to keep learning, unlearning. Right? And so if we are not able to cultivate that passion for learning from young, it will be very difficult later on in life when they get really absorbed and distracted by various other things like family, like friends and whatever not, then they will just put learning at the back burner. But now learning is actually very important. Even I have to keep on learning. Yeah, so I think that is important. On top of other things that I've shared, but
skills,
this is, I think, the most important way to inoculate us against the challenges of the future.
Okay. How can one do that? To inculcate lifelong learning?
I think it's easy to say family but it is true, because if I look at my kids, it's really from when they were young toddlers, or even babies, just keep helping them to read, or just read to them, and then challenge them, make them curious. I think there are little ways to evoke that. Then thereafter, it's really in school. How do you make learning enjoyable? Easier said than done, especially when there are tests and exams. But it's how do we help them gain that joy of learning? To some people, it's like, as long as there's new knowledge, I feel so 充实 already. There are some others who are like, I need to get maybe 100 marks on my test to feel, oh yes, I taste success. Maybe, but it's really how can we help them to enjoy? And I think with that, over time, they will have that confidence and that affinity towards it.
Yeah, just to wrap up this segment on education, I resonate with you like 1000%.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know you don't need my validation, but still I want to share this.
Thank you, but I still thank you.
I know. but I still share this because I always share with students that education goes beyond just 4 walls and a piece of paper. That's important, right? It gives you foundation. But education is so much more than that. It's only limited by your imagination, right? Your hunger for learning, which is what you mentioned. And once they can see that the true essence of education, what it really is, right? Not just test alone, but really beyond that, right? Like you said, lifelong learning, soft skills, empathy, being able to learn something new and be fascinated by that. I think that is, like you said, the crux. And that's why I have so much passion for education, because every day I'm learning something new. Indeed. And now, speaking to you, it's also a form of education for me.
I'm learning from you.
Thank you. So I think when we come to the final segment, which is on mental health, something we're both really passionate about. In fact, you've been talking about it even before you were in Parliament. Why is this important to you and to society at large?
I think mental health is important because, how do I put this? It's almost like, someone can be so talented, but sometimes when they get trapped in their emotions or that state of mind, then it really curtails what they could do. Of course, I've heard of people saying that those with mental health conditions are the most creative. You have Picasso, for example, and that's true. But I think from what I've observed, I've seen people out there in the community, just not doing anything because they're trapped in that space, and unable to step out. And do something that could really make a difference, whether it's to themselves or to others. And to me, I think that's really very sayang,
It's saddening to see.
Yeah, and so if we can help them to get the help that they need, I think that will be 功德圆满, it's a good deed.
Okay.
And also, we know that sometimes it's hard for them to get help because of stigma. And so can we make it such that it becomes a more encouraging, nurturing environment for them to go and seek help? And it's not just about making it and just encouraging you. Sometimes there's this other aspect which I just want to share. It's a different take. Sometimes some of them it manifests in antisocial behaviors. For example, throwing things out of the window and dirties people's things. I'm not saying that all are like that, but there's some that I've observed. And I mean, the lower floor neighbor, try as they might, they say, I understand, but every day my laundry is dirty and all these things. After a while, it creates that tension. Patients go through, even as they understand, but there's tension, and it actually reinforces stigma, and that makes it difficult. So I mean, I don't think there's a simplistic approach to this, but it's a complex one. There are many different angles that you need to address this. But I think at the core is that we need to understand that mental health is important. It is something that you cannot see. It's not like you can just, I feed you flu medicine, tomorrow your flu is done. But it's something that, you need to spend a lot of time. And sometimes you really don't know when you will see the results. And therein lies the challenge. But you need to keep at it. And you need to have that social scaffold to support them. And so that they can continue to fulfill their potential. Even if it's not 100%, at least 99%, hopefully. Yeah. So I think to me, mental health is important. And especially now with COVID, we realize how important it is, right? Even normal people whom we think was okay and would have been strong, you can see how they, like can be maybe like snap. More easily, and then they get very stressed, and then some people may do a bit strange out of normal things, So I think we have to recognize this, and so the social attitude, societal attitude needs to adjust. Policies, support schemes, all will have to adjust.
I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I know it's feels like we need a separate podcast for this, but no, I want to talk about it a little bit here. I want to quote you, if you don't mind. I think there's a World Mental Health Day you talked about. You wrote a short kind of post on mental health awareness. You shared that, this is just quoting of you, in many of my parliament speeches on mental health since 2011, I have called for, number one, further destigmatization of mental illness. Number two, promotion of greater social acceptance. Number three, enhancement of accessibility and affordability to professional mental health care. Number four, strengthening of community care and support framework. But talking about mental health is not enough. Actions are. And we have done so in the community, and we shall continue to do so. Before I talk about what more can be done, this has been 10 years, right? What are some actions that has been done, you have noticed, that you're proud of?
For myself, is it?
Yourself
or for
Singapore
Singapore?
in general.
I think I would say, from even before I entered Parliament to when I entered Parliament to today, it has been progress has been made.
Okay.
Previously, when I was when I first started out as a MP, when I talked about mental health, people don't really respond very much, except for those who are interested in the topic, obviously. Just give a proxy. If I put a Facebook post or whatever post, everything else will get a lot more likes and whatever responses than if I talk about mental health.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. So it's almost like people either like don't want to engage in it, uninterested in it, or like it's a taboo, right? But today, last year, this year, suddenly there's an explosion of interest. Yeah. And I remember last year during Circuit Breaker, I did a live session on talking about mental health. Because people were cooped up and various things, and there was so much interest. And then when this year, was it this year or late last year, there was this mental health thing, and then I think the mental health day. And then a lot more MPs were talking about it. There was even the push-up challenge, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So and people were talking about it. So I think now it's a very good time when people are receptive to this, generally speaking. And so I want to acknowledge this. It has shifted. Within the within the system, the policy. So, for example, some of the increasing number of mental health conditions are eligible for use of MediSave. For example, I think that's actually a significant move. And then, of course, there were many other structures that were being built. The various teams that, between IMH, with the primary healthcare, with the various players within the system, coming together to provide better support. Even the destigmatization of mental health clinics, and now it's called wellness clinics, right? So even primary healthcare practitioners can also help to identify and then make referrals or make some intervention. So I think these are useful. And then within the community as well. So, for example, in Macpherson years ago, I reached out to AIC, Agency for Integrated Care, and met the lady who helped me when I was a volunteer, when I wanted to organize a mental health workshop for volunteers to help them understand what is mental health, because they thought it's like...
Yeah, sometimes it's not...
They thought it was just a troublemaker, but it's not. It's just that they are being trapped, right? So, So then we decided to form like a network within Macpherson. So if we encounter, first of all, we have to train our volunteers to be able to identify who might be vulnerable, and then make the referral so that someone can come in and engage further, and then see whether need further intervention or not. Okay. Yeah. So we have that in space, but the challenge is that. There's a certain, you need to respect people's privacy and space. You cannot, at this moment, you cannot force the person to receive treatment unless the person is posing personal bodily harm. Sure. Otherwise, it's tough.
There's no choice.
Yeah. So there's a bit of tension in that part there. But otherwise, I think these are being done. So whether is it enough, I'm sure we can do more. But at least it has been progress, and I'm glad to see that.
Okay. So I think there are definitely improvements. I do agree with you, lah. It's very true that now there's more awareness and knowledge of at least what is it about. But it's still tough because it's invisible, and because I've experienced it before, right? I know that actually experiencing it and seeing it from the outside is two very completely different things. And it's quite impossible to understand. I don't wish it upon anybody. But how can we then improve, like you said, that social acceptance or strengthening of that framework, both or maybe on an organizational level and maybe on a personal level. So we talk about organizational level first, and then on a personal level, if people are facing issues, what advice would you give to them?
I think at the organizational level, I presume, like, for example, in a company, I think the avenue, that there is an avenue for people to seek help or to just talk to someone is important. It could be HR, it could be mentor-mentee. Some companies have that. Buddy system, for example. I think that is useful. It's a real signal. The other thing is that the leadership, or at every level, people need to keep their biases and prejudices in check. I think there is always this tendency to judge. like, why are you acting so strange? Why are you being so defeatist in your mindset? Why are you?
Sure.
And that makes people very defensive. I don't want to be judged by my boss, but I really am struggling. How? I don't want to be seen it from a colored lens or by my colleague because 我也要面子啊. I have pride, right? So, these are stigma lah, basically, right? So and makes it so difficult for people to even
Yeah.
reveal and ask for help.
Even if there's support available, they don't want to go for it.
Yes, and so I think that is important. Then from a personal level, depends on whether you are the one suffering from it or you are the one who is helping lah. So sometimes even the helping person may not know that, subconsciously may have body language that may not be very helpful lah, even if they actually try to care. But nonetheless, it's still good. I mean, to begin with, that you want to help, right? So I think just being there to listen, don't judge, don't say anything. Just say, I just want to understand. I think it's useful. It may take a while to build that trust, and then for the person who is feeling it's tough. I think there are some instances where, for example, if there's psychosis, you may need some stronger intervention like help and CBT and various things. But also that sometimes I feel talking to yourself helps. You have to talk positively to yourself. Sure. You may not have everyone around you to give you the affirmation, the positive affirmation to boost you, to move you along. Sure. But sometimes you have to talk to yourself and say, it's not that bad, things can be better. I know it's really tough, especially for depression, for example, but really have to try. And that sometimes you have to take that first step even to be vulnerable, step out, seek help. It is not like magic that immediately it will be solved, but over time it will be. The whole thing to me is a process. It's a journey. You can't change people's mindset overnight. This is the very difficult part, where you really need time. You need to keep reinforcing. Every reinforcement helps. And so time is needed, so patience is needed. Even the general society at large. But if I look at what we have today, comparing to 2011, comparing to even before I joined, it has been a huge progress. Okay,
I'm heartened to hear that. I'm very heartened to hear that. I think that's a good kind of conclusion to this segment on mental health. I will put in some links if, let's say, you do want to find avenues to seek help. We can check it out in the links, especially if you are facing it. Like what Ms Tin actually mentioned, there is hope. You just need to cling on to it and seek help and take small actions. And one day, I think you look back and you appreciate that you even help someone in a similar position. Before we end, we have one last final surprise segment.
Surprise?
Yes, it's a short answer questions. Oh no! No lah, but actually this one is more targeted one.
Okay.
So, ready? Okay. Okay. If you could sum up 10 years of being an MP in one word, what would it be?
Grateful.
Grateful, okay. Can. Sorry, the spot. What's the toughest part of being an MP?
Expectations. Meeting expectations.
What's the most rewarding part of it?
Building relationships.
What is the proudest moment in your term of service so far?
When someone who originally, when I met like years ago, was in the down and clearly very stressed, and today when I meet him again, he is like very happy and we are like friends. Next
question. One tip to handle harsh criticism or judgment.
Shake it off. Okay, if it's constructive, please take it seriously and work on it. But if not, just shake it off.
How can we as a society build more resilience and positive mental health in youth?
I think we need to be open. Okay. Yeah, the general society has to be open to accepting people with their vulnerabilities and see how we can help them fortify that in that sense. And then young people also need to be open about sharing and receiving help. And so I think that also assumes no judgment. And I think that is an important ingredient.
Okay. What has been the lowest point in your life?
Lowest point, oh yeah, 2011 lah. To be honest.
And how do you come out of it stronger?
Whatever I shared just now.
Okay, so you must listen to the full podcast. If you're only listening to this snippet, okay. What's the most valuable life lesson you've learned?
That I have two lah. One is I think family having, that is important, is an anchor. And then two is that really there's always hope. What doesn't kill you will make you stronger.
What is one insight you have gained from your sons?
One insight that I've gained from my sons, that they are always full of surprises.
Sure. The innocence lah.
Yeah.
Last question. What is one last message you have for young Singaporeans?
It's actually the same as what I said earlier, is that there will always be hope. And for young people, clearly time is on your side. Whatever you feel that is overwhelming currently, that is as if there's nothing more that you can do, that's not true. You will always have people around you to support you. And that it's okay to just fall down and pick yourself up again. People won't remember the embarrassing moment now. In time to come, they will only remember what you are doing at that point in time. So work towards that future.
Yeah, thank you, Ms Tin. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you. On behalf of Singaporeans and your supporters, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
From the bottom of my heart for your courage, despite the pressure, and just for speaking up and serving all of us. So thank you. I think we've come to the end of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, I did. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone.
It's your first time on the podcast?
I don't even remember.
Okay. Never mind, it's okay. It's okay. For us, it's the first time. So we've come to the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed it, feel free to share this episode. Follow us on Spotify as well, if let's say you're watching this on YouTube. And a Clubhouse. We're on Clubhouse as well, so you want to check that out. That is fine. With that, we've come to the end of this episode. Stay resilient, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.